I'm an honest man. After my wife passed away, I was overwhelmed with grief, hugging the dress she once wore, almost crying myself to death. However, the very next second, a row of bullet comments suddenly appeared before my eyes. They read, "The female lead faked her death to test the male supporting role, and even specially found another woman to tempt him. This womanizing jerk of a male supporting role is about to cheat. The baby female lead belongs to the male lead now. Can't wait to see the male supporting role kneeling outside in the rain, begging for forgiveness. Little does he know, the female lead is inside acting cute and begging the male lead to stop kissing her. So satisfying." I was filled with righteous indignation, and swore I would never betray my wife. But on the day of the funeral, the goddess of my middle school days, Willow, the queen of the music scene known as the ultimate, pure yet seductive, icon, appeared. My kind sister-in-law, with tears like pear blossoms in the rain, softly called out to me, "Brother-in-law, my sister is gone. But I'm still here. Wait." Using this to test me. Chapter 1. I went to get my fortune told. The fortune teller said, "You're destined to have 2 wives. The one in front of you right now isn't your true love." I snapped. What nonsense. I was furious. The next second, a chilling gust of wind brushed past me. I shuddered, and a slender, pale hand reached over and snatched the fortune slip from my grasp. I turned around and met Sophia's eyes. She said, "Honey, don't believe it." Sophia gave a faint smile, pressing her lips together as she examined the slip. I knew she didn't care. She had only married me as a compromise. There were many people chasing after her, given her qualities. If she left me, she would only find someone better. I was just the one who had pursued her the longest. She didn't marry the one she loved most. She married the one who loved her most. I just didn't expect Sophia to settle this score with me that very night. She pressed the tip of her foot against my chest, keeping me from getting closer. Her expression was cold, her voice even colder. None of her usual tenderness remained. I knew exactly what that look meant. She didn't like me that much, but I was only allowed to like her. So I said, "Sophia," trying to please her, "I only love you." I swore again and again that as long as she lived, I would love her for as long as she lived. She asked, "What if I die?" I froze. "I'd still love you." She caught the few seconds of hesitation in my words. Her eyes widened slightly. The foot I was holding shrank back instinctively, then pressed firmly against my chest again. She said, "George, even if I die, you can only love me." Late at night, Sophia put on her coat and sat on the windowsill, her long legs crossed, answering a phone call. The person on the other end said, "Tomorrow, news of your fake death will be released." The voice continued, "You'll go stay on the island for half a year. Once we catch the mole here, you can come back." Sophia responded with a cool, indifferent hum. The person then asked, "You're really not going to tell your husband it's a fake death?" Sophia didn't tell me, partly to avoid exposing the plan, partly to test me. When she was 7, her mother ran away with another man, taking her younger sister but leaving her behind. She hated betrayal more than anything. She wanted to test whether I would truly remain faithful. She asked the person on the phone, "Did you find anything?" The person replied, "We've been following him for half a month. Your husband has no one else. He goes from home to work and back every day, just a straight routine. He's an honest man." The person added, "Honestly, everyone knows George loves you the most." Then couldn't help teasing, "Sophia, are you really worried that he'll find someone else if he thinks you're dead?" Sophia let out a cold snort. "If he does, then he does," she said indifferently. "There are plenty of people chasing after me. He's not the only one who wants to marry me." Sophia hung up the phone. By chance, she touched the fortune slip in her bag. She clenched it in her palm and stared at it for a few seconds, frowning in irritation. She tilted her head slightly and glanced at me sleeping inside the room. Then, with a flick of her hand, she tossed it into the trash. Chapter 2. The next day was our anniversary. I waited for her in the restaurant all afternoon, and what I got instead was news of her death. I stood there in a daze, listening to the person in front of me talk about things like a hotel fire. I went home alone. I saw the dress she had worn last night draped over the sofa. I picked it up and put it into the washing machine, only to realize there was no point anymore. The moment that realization hit, suffocation and heartache spread from the cold back of my neck to my fingertips. I held her clothes and couldn't recover for a long time, until the day of the funeral. I saw scrolling bullet comments, and they read, "Here they come. Here they come. The female lead faked her death to test the male supporting role. This cheating jerk of a male supporting role is about to cheat soon. The female lead baby is going to belong to the male lead. That idiot male supporting role can't resist temptation. He thinks he's struck gold, but when the female lead comes back, he'll regret it to death. The male lead is exactly the female lead's ideal type. The two of them will fall in love over time on the island. She acts tough, but she can't resist him. The male supporting role simped for so many years just to barely have her. While the male lead gets everything just by standing there, there were also comments saying, "Can't wait to see the male supporting role kneeling outside in the rain, begging for forgiveness. Not knowing the female lead is inside acting cute and begging the male lead to stop kissing her, so satisfying." I looked at those bullet comments and only felt both ridiculous and empty. So I was just the male supporting role. No wonder. No matter how good I was to Sophia, I could never warm her heart, but I couldn't accept it. I would actually cheat. And those comments even said I would cheat at the funeral. Heaven knows, I'm an honest man who understands basic morals and decency. How could I possibly fool around before my wife's mourning period is even over? What made me even angrier was that, looking around, not a single person at the funeral was better looking than Sophia. I became a simp because I care about looks. Another comment said, "Just thinking about how the male supporting role will wake up every morning to see an ugly woman's face makes me feel like he deserves it. No wonder he'll regret it, but what's the use? The beauty belongs to the male lead." Then another comment popped up. "Wait, who is that beauty? Damn, those legs are so long." I turned my head. Among the line of people paying their respects, with incense smoke curling in the air, one delicate and striking face stood out. After placing 3 sticks of incense, the crowd dispersed. In the misty drizzle, she walked toward me holding an umbrella. The woman stood in front of me, her eyes brimming with tears, and softly called out, "Brother-in-law, my sister is gone. I only have you now," she said. "My sister wouldn't want you to be too sad. You have to pull yourself together." A few steps behind her was the black and white portrait of her sister, just hung up. Chapter 3. Willow, currently the hottest top-tier diva, hailed as the nation's goddess with the ultimate blend of innocence and allure, and now, she was standing less than half a meter away from me. "This is Sophia's younger sister," someone beside me said. She was the very sister taken away by Sophia's mother, the one Sophia hated the most. So after all these years of marriage, I had never met her even once. I was Willow's brother-in-law. In just a few seconds, my mind flashed with thoughts like, she looks way better in person than on screen. A big celebrity is actually my sister-in-law. And she's even being so kind, comforting me. Hey, such a kind sister-in-law. No, not that kind of kind sister-in-law. Damn it. I was both anxious and nervous, facing her face so close to mine. My throat completely failed me, but I couldn't just let the moment fall flat. I had to greet her. I forced out a sound. Ah, gah. My tightened throat ultimately produced something that sounded like a duck's quack. So embarrassing. I wanted to faint on the spot, but I'm just the male supporting role. My body is annoyingly resilient. 10 minutes later, I hid in a dark, empty corner of the stairwell, shutting down emotionally. Someone said, "Have you seen George? Willow is looking for him." Outside, 2 of Sophia's relatives walked past, their voices growing closer. Another person said, "I heard from the lawyer that Sophia already transferred all her money away, not a cent left in the account." The first replied, "Yeah, a woman has to leave herself some security. If she didn't transfer it, it'd all become marital property during a divorce." Right, honestly, it's hilarious. Back then he couldn't even come up with $300,000 for the bride price. Cheap guy deserves it. The other said, "Don't say that. I think George is an honest guy. He couldn't even speak properly just now." Their footsteps gradually faded away. The bullet comments in front of me were still scrolling, now showing scenes from the island. Ah, the male and female leads have met. Why is the female lead staring at the male lead like that? Even the female lead's dog likes the male lead. Dogs are more honest than people. I took a deep breath, twisted the door handle, and prepared to go home. The moment I opened the door, someone suddenly grabbed my sleeve and pulled me back inside. She let go, lifted her eyes to look at me, and said, "Found you." In the narrow stairwell, the door was pushed half open by the wind, letting in only a sliver of light. She asked, "Are you hiding from me?" Willow's features were obscured in the shadows, but her voice became even clearer. She said, "Do you hate me too, like my sister does?" I stepped back half a step and shook my head. No, God knows it was already hard enough just to breathe looking at her face. And yet, she leaned even closer. The corner of her lips curved slightly as she blinked at me and asked, "Then, do you like me?" Someone passed by outside, and the door was pushed open a little wider by the airflow. Instinctively, I turned my head away, glancing around as if waiting for someone. My reaction made her laugh. After the people outside left, the light streamed back in, and I finally saw her clear, gentle eyes. She said, "Do you remember me?" Then asked, "Back in our first year of high school, we were in the same class." The name Willow ran through my entire student life. She transferred schools in her second year and debuted soon after. One song made her famous, and she went on to win countless awards. Chapter 4. The year of the college entrance exams. I gave it everything I had and managed to get into a first-tier university. On the first day of school, my roommate lay on his bed listening to music when that familiar voice played. I froze for a moment. It was Willow. Later, after graduation, my roommate stopped listening to her songs, but I never did. Tickets to Willow's concerts sold out instantly every time. The one time I finally managed to grab a ticket, I got called back to the office for overtime at the last minute. I gave a bitter smile at my desk. I realized then, I wasn't upset because I couldn't go. I was upset because, in that moment, I clearly understood that she and I belonged to two completely different worlds. I might never meet her in this lifetime. I remember, I said. I looked up at her. What a coincidence. I didn't expect you to remember me, let alone that we'd end up becoming relatives. I tried my best to make my voice sound less tense. I said, who would have thought the next time I'd see you would be at my wife's funeral, sitting at the same table for the funeral banquet, hearing me call Sophia my wife, and seeing how worn out I looked. She seemed to finally remember, this was her sister's funeral. She said, She turned slightly, putting a bit of distance between us. Fine raindrops mixed with slanted wind tapped against the door, briefly filling the silence. She pressed her lips together and said, my sister was too much. She didn't look at me, only frowned slightly. How could she treat you like that? She was probably referring to Sophia transferring all the money away. Willow had been in the industry for years, low profile, no scandals, always with a good reputation. Even years later, at class reunions, people would still say, back then my family was so poor I couldn't afford meals. Willow didn't even know me, but she quietly brought me food. She's really a good person. I thought, Willow must be a warm-hearted girl. That's why, with that face that could easily make people's thoughts wander, she looked at me gently and said, what do you want? As my sister's younger sister, I'll compensate you. I'm terrible. In that moment, I clearly realized, I really am a wicked male supporting role. My mind was full of, sigh, forget it. Don't say it. Control yourself. I let out a breath and said, no need. But she asked again, her voice soft, are you sure you don't need anything? I said, no, you don't owe me anything. She nodded. Oh, outside. The shadows of the trees swayed. The door was blown fully open by the wind. Someone outside was calling my name. I turned to leave. She watched me go and softly said, George. Then, can I ask for a bit of compensation? Confused, I turned back to look at her. What? She said, marry me. She said, I'll take my sister's place. Chapter 5. Willow and I returned to the funeral banquet one after the other. People around us were eating. Some glanced at me, still continuing the topic from earlier. Do you think Sophia would regret it? Another person asked. Regret what? The first sighed. If she'd known life would be this short, she should have married the one she truly loved, not the one who loved her more. Someone tried to signal him to stop, but couldn't help sneaking a glance at my expression. The bullet comments scrolled by. The male supporting role still doesn't know. Right, the male lead just acts a little cold, and the female lead is already not used to it. Others said, the male supporting role is picking a cheating partner right now. Wonder which ugly woman he'll choose. When the female lead comes back, the comparison alone will make her furious. Serves him right for cheating. A heartless scumbag like him deserves it. The comments floated by, while people around me whispered and judged. I should have been heartbroken, but right now, staring at Sophia's portrait on the wall, there was only one thought in my mind. Marry the nation's goddess Willow. You're testing me with that. Sigh, sigh, sigh. Well, I guess I have no choice. I couldn't hold it in. I raised my hand to cover my face and burst into tears. The more I cried, the more the corners of my mouth twitched. What else could I do? I'm just a morally compromised, temptation weak, unfaithful male supporting role. After all, wife, you're gone, and I got what I wanted. Seeing me cry so miserably, the people around didn't have the heart to mock me anymore. In a corner, the person who had spoken with Sophia that night watched my reaction and let out a sigh. They took out their phone and sent a message to an unfamiliar number. Sophia, don't go too far. Your husband really loves you. He almost cried his voice out at the funeral today. A few seconds later, the reply came. Got it. I'll explain everything to him when I get back. Chapter 6. Half a year later, Sophia was ready to return. The mole had been dealt with. Everyone now knew she wasn't dead, but after waiting an entire night, she still didn't receive a single call from me. Her best friend said, your husband must be mad. At the funeral, I thought he wanted to follow you in death. Her friend urged her to call me, but she didn't. She was used to waiting for me to lower my head first and coax her. She said, call or don't call, who cares? What she didn't expect was that I didn't go to the airport to pick her up. In the past, I would have gone, even in the middle of the night. She waited at the airport for half an hour. Among the coming and going crowd, I wasn't there. Dragging her suitcase, she grew inexplicably irritated. Go home, the driver asked. Which home? Sophia let out a cold snort. Wherever my husband is, that's where I'm going. The driver froze for a moment, then hesitantly said, Mr. Wong has already moved. She frowned. Moved where? The driver gave her an address. The car fell into silence for 5 whole minutes. Sophia frowned and asked irritably, "Why are you giving me Willow's address?" The driver was startled and reminded her, "You were the one who asked the lawyer to liquidate all the assets. That house couldn't be kept either." Sophia's gaze darkened. She thought, George really has no backbone, actually going to her sister for help. Yes, she knew that transferring all the assets had been a bit excessive. After all, George had always trusted her so much, even handing over all the money he earned for her to manage. But she had to do it, to guard against anyone trying to get close to George during these 6 months. George was such an ordinary man without money backing him. Who would even like him? The bullet comments lit up with excitement. Serves the male supporting role right. He earns less than the female lead and made her suffer with him for so long, never liked him anyway. Others replied, forget the male supporting role for now, what's going on with the female lead? Wasn't she supposed to fall in love over time? On the island, the male lead almost fell for her dog instead. He couldn't even get a conversation going with her. Meanwhile, the female lead kept staring at the male lead because she thought he was trying to steal her dog. All she did on the island was guard against him stealing her dog and flip through the calendar every day waiting to see her husband. Finally she comes back, and her husband is with someone else. Another comment popped up. There's still hope. Once the female lead finds out the male supporting role cheated, the male lead gets his chance. The car stopped in Willow's underground parking garage, and Sophia went upstairs. The door was half open. She slipped inside sideways. This sneaky feeling of entering made her inexplicably annoyed. She was here to find her husband, but the thought twisted into something like catching someone cheating, doubling her irritation. No one was in the master bedroom. As expected, she herself had never even stayed in this apartment of Willow's. In the guest bedroom sat George's suitcase. She lifted her gaze and saw, on the table, a brand new slip dress. Beside it was a half-written card. Happy wedding, George. She recalled that day. She had decided to deceive George, so she never received an anniversary gift, but this dress looked like something Willow would wear. Too youthful in style. She had always disdained the things George gave her, mocking his taste, calling them cheap trash. Chapter 7. But when I pushed open the guest room door, I saw that the cheap trash was now on her. Sophia leaned against the windowsill and immediately asked me, "Why didn't you come pick me up?" She and Willow did look alike, but their temperaments were completely different. Back when I went on a blind date with Sophia, I fell for her at first sight, but now, this face wasn't as attractive to me anymore. I brushed away the hand she reached out to grab mine. She froze for a moment. In the past, whenever we hadn't seen each other for a long time, I would always lift her up and kiss her enthusiastically, while she would put on a look of disgust. Now, I was the one distancing myself. She grabbed my sleeve and asked, "What's wrong with you?" "I'm back, aren't I?" I pulled my hand free and said calmly, "Give me back the dress." She refused to let me leave, gripping my sleeve tighter, her tone turning cold. "That's enough," I said. "It's not for you. I bought it for someone else." The room fell silent for a moment. She gave a light laugh, but there was frost in her eyes. "Who did you buy it for?" "I've only been dead for half a year, and you're already buying clothes for another woman," I said. "You were dead, so I was single. I already planned to buy it on the day of your funeral." Her lips twitched as she bit down on them. "You wasted no time, did you? George, you're really something." Sophia turned to leave. I said, "Wait." She stopped, only to hear me say coldly, "Give me back the dress." Her face flushed red. She laughed in anger. Slowly, she began to take it off, revealing a stretch of pale skin. I turned my face away, but she suddenly grabbed my hand and pressed it against her chest. I jerked my hand back. Sophia looked at me with disgust and said, "Have you touched other women like this too? You make me sick." Then, with reddened eyes, she smiled and said, "I'm actually very glad that after all your efforts, you still failed to make me like you. With your terrible taste, and someone like you, who would even want that?" She changed out of the dress, threw it at my face, and slammed the door as she left. After that day, Sophia never contacted me again. I heard that, to celebrate being free of me, she drank, went clubbing, and attended all kinds of parties with her friends. I used to try to control her, but the more I did, the more she insisted on going. Sometimes, just to provoke me, she would half-jokingly say that there were plenty of men chasing her, many far better than me, and that I didn't even rank among them. Luckily, now I don't care anymore. Sophia, who rarely posted anything, uploaded a group photo, more than a dozen people at a party. Behind her, a man held her little dog, smiling brightly. The bullet comments read, "Tears in my eyes, the male lead finally made it into a group photo. Finally, the male supporting role gets to see the male and female leads together. Regretting it now. Huh. Does anyone know who the side chick the male supporting role found is? So ugly she doesn't even deserve a name. Haha. Male supporting role. Just get lost already. Does he really think the female lead will come back to him? A few days later, I ran into Sophia at a private club. She was in the room next door. Glasses clinked. Conversations overlapped. I avoided looking her way, and she didn't spare me a single glance either. It seemed she had already moved on. That was for the best. I just didn't expect to run into her again at the restroom entrance. She leaned against the wall, wearing a black fitted mini dress, a coat draped over her arm, her expression cold and slightly provocative, as if she were waiting for someone. She watched me go in without saying a word. When I came out, she was still there. I walked straight past her. She let out a faint scoff. Then, her long arm wrapped around my neck, and she suddenly shoved me back inside. Behind me was another empty private room. She clung to me desperately, biting down on my lips as if venting emotions she had suppressed for far too long. With nowhere to retreat, I grabbed the back of her neck and shoved her away. Blood seeped from the corner of her lips. Her breathing was uneven. The corners of her eyes tinged red. She raised her hand and wiped her mouth. Her voice was low, hoarse, and cold as she said, "I forgive you. But tell me, who is that shameless woman?" I glared at her. "She's not a side chick." Sophia froze slightly. That expression, I used to have it whenever I instinctively protected her in front of others. It used to belong only to her. Now, she was the outsider. Sophia's lips pressed into a thin line as she said, "Do you really have to care about her that much? What does she have that I don't? Be honest, who do you like kissing more, me or her?" Even though I had never kissed Willow, I answered without hesitation, "Her." Sophia's voice instantly rose sharply. "Don't mention her." I sneered. "You're the one who asked." Before I could finish, she leaned in again, trying to kiss me once more. The next second, smack, I slapped her hard across the face. She was stunned. She knew I had always loved her face the most. "I'm your wife," she said, her voice carrying an undeniable hint of grievance. "If she seduced you, what else would she be if not a side chick?" I said, "You're not my wife anymore. I remarried." I spoke each word clearly. "The one acting like a homewrecker is you." Chapter 8. On the day I registered my marriage with Willow, I woke up early. Willow was busy. She had to return to the capital the next day for rehearsals. After that, she had a tour, and wouldn't be back for another 6 months. So we chose the earliest time slot to register. There weren't many people there. We entered from different entrances. I sat alone on a row of cold metal chairs. In front of me, a girl held hands with her boyfriend, scrolling through trending topics while waiting for their number to be called. Willow's name flashed across her screen. I thought back to that rainy stairwell, when Willow stood beside me, calling her manager, telling them we were getting married. Her manager said, "From the day your sister was confirmed dead, the marriage was legally dissolved. Unless she comes back alive, it won't automatically be reinstated. But if you two get married, she won't have the right to restore that marriage anymore." Her manager asked, "Have you really thought this through? You're going public?" She said, "Mm." The manager continued, "Do you know what the consequences will be?" Willow paused for a moment, then said softly, "I promised my fans, if I get married, I'll make it public." Then she added, looking at me with a serious gaze, "Anne, I really like him." "Hello." A staff member interrupted my thoughts. She smiled, confirmed my identity, and led me toward a private room at the end. I followed, gripping the documents in my hand. The strange feeling, something hidden from everyone now, yet soon to be known by all, made my heart race. The door opened. Willow, sitting on a chair, turned back to look at me. Her features were striking, almost overwhelmingly beautiful. Documents were handed over. Stamps were placed. It was done in 15 minutes. I took the marriage certificate. Suddenly, I remembered years ago, when I went to one of her concerts. The crowd was overwhelming, screams echoing everywhere. I had never managed to clearly see her face. She was so far away from me. No one knew who I was. The bigger the stage, the louder the music, the less she belonged to me. But now, on the marriage certificate, the photo was of her and me. She said, "I'll be back on July 11th. In the empty parking lot." She told me this. I still hadn't gotten used to the fact that she was now my wife. I could only nod blankly. Her manager called, urging her to hurry. I turned to leave. She grabbed me, let out a soft laugh, and stood on her tiptoes to whisper a string of numbers into my ear. I asked, confused, "What?" She said, "The password to my door." Seeing that I still hadn't reacted, she smiled even more beautifully. "George," she said, "you don't have anywhere to stay, right?" "I have no intention of living separately from my husband." That afternoon, I arranged for movers. I cleared out everything that belonged to me. In a daze, I arrived at Gulf No. 1 in the city center. So this was where Willow lived. As the elevator rose floor by floor, the sense of unreality wrapped around me. On the glass cabinet were her trophies and microphones. The master bedroom was empty. Several guest rooms, however, had things placed inside. I didn't dare touch her belongings. After hesitating for a long time, I sent her a message. Which guest room can I sleep in? A few minutes later, Willow called. She was probably rehearsing. Her breathing was still uneven. She moved to a quieter place. After a few seconds of silence, she said, "What I want is a real marriage. When I come back, you'll have to move into the master bedroom." Okay. I tightened my grip on the phone and said, "Okay." Chapter 9. Who are you calling a homewrecker? Sophia's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. In the dim private room, her eyes were dark and unreadable. Her face flushed red as she waited for my answer. I said, "You." At that, her pupils trembled, shock and helplessness flashing through them. "Heh." She shook off my hand and took a few steps back, leaning against the wall, but she quickly pieced things together. When she looked up again, that same arrogant expression returned. "George, you may have no sense of decency, but I do. You want me to be your side chick? Dream on," I replied. "I never wanted you to be one." She paused, then asked blankly, "You won't even let me be the side chick?" After saying that, she turned her face away. Clearly, she had just spoken without thinking. I said, "Our marriage is already over. And anyway, you've never liked me all these years. Let's just settle the property division now that you're back. As for the future, you go find the person you like. I'll find mine. Isn't that what you always wanted?" The bullet comments lit up. Female lead. You're done for. How did the main wife become the side chick? And now you're the one regretting it. Who exactly did the male supporting role cheat with? He even got married. Others added, there's no way his wife is prettier than the female lead. Probably just some ugly woman. No wonder he's not causing trouble. He was waiting for this. What do you mean? The next comment explained. He's deliberately trying to make the female lead jealous. She was just emotional earlier, but now she's genuinely disgusted. This trick won't work anymore. Sophia said, "You're right." Her gaze turned indifferent. "I never want to see you again." Just like the comments said, she really did hate me. I just wondered what kind of reaction she'd have if she found out I married the sister she hated the most. As Sophia turned to open the door, my phone rang. It was Willow. Sophia glanced at it, snatched the phone, answered, and pressed it to her ear. My heart skipped. Willow's clear, pleasant voice came through. "I just landed. Are you home?" Sophia looked up at me, sensing something off. She said, "Why does it matter where someone else's husband is?" There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then Willow gave a light laugh, her tone casual and unconcerned. "Sis, you're back from the dead?" Sophia stared at me intensely, watching my expression as she spoke into the phone. "Wait there. We're coming to pick you up." Then she hung up. She asked me, "You're already remarried, so why are you still going to my sister's place?" Sophia looked almost unhinged now. I was afraid that if she found out, it would bring unnecessary trouble to Willow, but my silence only irritated her more. She let out a cold laugh. "What? You got remarried and still plan to keep collecting side chicks? A second, third, fourth. Is Willow your next target? Is this fun for you? Addicted to it or something?" Chapter 10. She glared at me and said, "What a pity, not everyone is as blind as I was, even if just for a moment." Sophia shoved the phone back into my hand. To keep her distance, she got straight into the back seat. Half an hour later, I drove to the parking lot closest to the airport's special access lane. Willow walked toward her sister. She was wearing a white layered dress, her figure slim, giving off a strong youthful charm. She opened the car door and saw me, waving at me. She said, "I'm back." Willow gave a gentle smile and said it again to me in person. The moment she sat in the passenger seat, even her perfume made me feel dizzy. Seriously, when will I stop getting so nervous around my high school goddess that I can't even speak? I turned my gaze away, only to accidentally meet Sophia's eyes in the rearview mirror. She was sitting in the back seat, looking at me sideways. She saw everything clearly. The car started moving. The silence along the way was strangely oppressive. The bullet comments popped up. "Guys, why do I feel like the remarried partner is the celebrity sister? This subtle newlywed vibe." Others said, "The male supporting role is eating good, top-tier upgrade. Even prettier and younger than the female lead." If it were me, I wouldn't hold back either. Some were furious. "Why him? Even the male lead didn't get her. What right does he have?" Someone replied, "Why are you so triggered? Seriously, what did the male supporting role even do to you?" The comment section's getting ridiculous. Another comment read, "Poor female lead, she thought she was catching a mistress, but turns out she's confronting the legal wife. The key point is, they're both so quiet." Someone else added, "What's going on? Are they competing to see who stays calmer to prove who's the real wife?" Looking at the comments, the road ahead somehow felt even longer. Willow sat beside me, quietly resting with her eyes closed, obedient and calm. But the more she rested, the more uncontrollably my mind replayed what she said on the phone that day. "When I come back, you'll have to move into the master bedroom." "Okay." Ah. That's tonight. Sleeping with my goddess. Ah. Brain. Stop imagining things. I rubbed my forehead helplessly, trying to play some music, only to realize I had been listening to a novel earlier in the car. The next second, a mechanical male voice started reading aloud, vivid and merciless. After my wife died, I inherited a huge fortune, including her beautiful younger sister. That night, my sister-in-law knocked on the door and said, "Brother-in-law, open the door." Damn it. I hurriedly shut off the audio. The car fell into dead silence. One person in the back seat clenched her fists tightly, glaring at me through the rearview mirror. Another, in the passenger seat, pretending to rest, slowly lifted her eyelids. Chapter 11. Midway, I pulled off the highway and stopped the car. I said, I'm going to use the restroom." Flustered, I unbuckled my seatbelt, but it got stuck. Willow leaned over to help me unfasten it. Her hand brushed against mine for a brief second. I got out of the car. The two of them got out as well, leaning against the car to get some air. Sophia watched me walk away. She tilted her head slightly and noticed Willow was also watching. The same look, the way one looks at their husband. Sophia's dark eyes pressed down her irritation as she sneered coldly, trying to be a side chick. Too late. He already remarried during the 6 months I was dead. When she said this, her tone was stiff, with a faint tremor, but it didn't stop her from warning the person in front of her, who clearly didn't know her place. Being a side chick never ends well. When his new wife comes after you, it'll be too late to regret it. Willow froze for a few seconds, then slowly turned her head back, smiled softly, and blinked as she asked her sister, "He didn't tell you who his new wife is?" Willow's smiling expression made Sophia even more displeased. Sophia said, "They're very much in love. He protects her like crazy. You don't stand a chance." Willow replied, "Oh." But the more Sophia spoke, the more Willow's smile deepened, full of unmistakable provocation. Her sister snapped angrily, "You shameless piece of trash." Willow answered, "Oh." Her sister was so furious her features twisted as she leaned in and hissed, "If you want to be my husband's side chick, you'll have to get in line. You know that. He's just after something new, looking at your face because you resemble me. You pathetic woman, without me, what are you even worth?" Willow's smile faded. Her eyes fixed on her sister, revealing a coldness she would never show in front of me. She said, "Is that so? Sis, don't worry," she added. "Being a side chick is disgraceful. I'm someone who got married properly." Sophia stared at her for a few seconds, gradually relaxing. "Good, at least you have some conscience." When I returned, the two of them were back in the car, still silent, but the atmosphere had clearly improved. The bullet comments exploded. The female lead was toyed with, yet she thought she had resolved a potential crisis and felt smug about it. "Sis, what are you praising her for? You're the only single one here." Can't imagine what the female lead's reaction will be when she finds out her sister is the legal wife. Another comment added. Meanwhile, in a corner no one cares about, the male lead is still feeding the female lead's dog. This is ridiculous. Chapter 12. We drove into the underground parking and arrived at Willow's place. After getting out of the car, Sophia instinctively tried to link arms with me, but I blocked her. I asked, "Why aren't you going back to your own place?" She replied, "Don't flatter yourself. It has nothing to do with you." Withdrawing her hand coldly, "If you can live in my sister's place, why can't I?" With that, she strode ahead in her long legs, walking quickly. No idea what she was mad about. She had always been like this, even when we were married. Whenever she got angry, she'd shake me off and walk away, waiting for me to chase after her and coax her. She had formed a habit of it. This time was no different. Sophia stepped into the elevator, assuming I would rush after her. She let the doors begin to close, arms crossed, watching me coldly. She wanted to see me panic, pressing the button, afraid she'd be angry. But this time, I didn't press it. I just watched as the doors fully closed. Just before they shut, a trace of panic flashed in Sophia's eyes. She scoffed and hit the open button from inside. The doors slowly opened again. But the next second, she saw Willow and me stepping into another elevator behind her. Sophia's gaze darkened. She quickly turned and rushed out of her elevator. But she was a few seconds too late. Through the narrowing gap, she stared at me, her eyes filled with shock and something like grievance she couldn't hide. Our elevator doors closed. The elevator began to rise. This was the first time Willow and I were alone since getting married. Afraid she might misunderstand, I explained. "I didn't tell Sophia about our marriage because I was worried she might cause trouble for you and affect your reputation." I rambled on and on. She listened, those peach blossom eyes fixed on me the whole time. I thought she was listening seriously, but when I finished, she only asked, "Did you miss me?" She hadn't listened to a word. I said, "Be serious." She smiled. "Sorry." "Say it again," I repeated. I said, "I was worried that if people with bad intentions made something out of our relationship." Before I could finish, She stood on her tiptoes and kissed me. Willow buried her face against my neck and said softly, almost aggrieved, "George, I missed you so much. You didn't even say you missed me." The elevator arrived. I fumbled through my pockets looking for the key. In the end, Willow laughed and grabbed my hand, raising an eyebrow as she said, "Our place has a fingerprint lock." I froze for a second, then opened the door. Ding! At the same time, the other elevator doors opened. Sophia stepped out. She was breathing unevenly, her expression strangely calm yet shattered. Her calf was injured, scraped red with blood. She said the elevator had caught her leg. She'd have to stay here tonight. Half an hour later, Willow's private doctor arrived. I asked the doctor, "Can an elevator door even cause this kind of injury?" She was fine before getting in. The doctor frowned, puzzled. "The door did this. This looks more like it was caused by a sharp object." "Hiss," Sophia said weakly, her gaze languid. "Be gentle. It hurts." The doctor met her eyes, paused, then turned to me and said, "The injury is quite serious. She needs someone to take care of her. She absolutely shouldn't move." Sophia leaned weakly against the sofa, tilting her head slightly as she said to Willow, "Sorry. Looks like your dear sister will have to stay here tonight." Willow lowered her gaze and said nothing. I walked over, bent down, and softly asked, "Are you hungry? I'll take you out for something good later." She curved her lips into a smile. "Sounds good." Chapter 13. 20 minutes later, the doctor finished treating Sophia's wound, wrapping her calf tightly. As I passed by her, I picked up my coat from the sofa. She raised an eyebrow and said, "I'm hungry. I can reluctantly eat something you cook." In the past, I always thought, even if Sophia didn't like me that much, if I did more for her, maybe she'd soften. After all, I was her husband. That should make me a little different from everyone else, right? Sophia never lifted a finger at home. She had a spoiled, princess-like temper. Cooking was always my responsibility. Even so, she was extremely picky. No matter how many people praised my cooking, in her eyes, it was always inferior. She complained every time, but if I really stopped cooking, she'd get angry. I said, "I'm not cooking for you anymore. I'm taking Willow out to eat." Willow walked over to my side and said to her, "Sis, since your leg is injured, you should stay home and rest." Then we walked past her toward the entrance. Sophia stared at me. Her expression was icy as she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. That was her signal, telling me to give in. "George," she stopped me. "There's a limit to how much I'll lower myself. If you don't take this way out I'm giving you, there won't be another." I put on my shoes, took Willow with me, and walked out. I never turned back to look at her. At the moment the door closed, Sophia's eyes darkened bit by bit. She raised her hand and struck her own leg in frustration. By the time Willow and I returned from dinner, Sophia was already gone. She had always been arrogant, rarely lowering her head, even less willing to beg anything from me. I didn't think about her anymore. After showering and changing clothes, I stood at the bathroom door, troubled by only one thing. Should I go to the master bedroom or the guest room? After a long internal struggle, I opened the bathroom door. Willow was standing right outside, waiting for me. My heartbeat instantly sped up. She was drying her hair. She had just showered too. This was a side of her I had never seen before. She handed me a cup of warm soup to chase away the chill. She watched me finish it before taking the cup back. "Good night, George," she said. Was that a signal that we'd each go back to our own rooms? My heart trembled. A sudden wave of disappointment rose. "Good night, Willow," I replied. I turned, opened the guest room door, and was about to close it, when she stopped me. Willow lifted her clear, gentle eyes and asked, "I get cold at night, can you stay with me?" Behind her, outside the floor-to-ceiling window, a summer thunderstorm raged, half neon-lit skyscrapers, half misty mountains. I suddenly remembered, back in our first year of high school, she used to sit by the window. I would always sneak glances at her when the classroom got noisy. Back then, behind her in her school uniform, there had also been a hazy valley under light rain. Later, she transferred schools. Someone else took that seat, and all I had left was that mountain view, accompanying me until graduation. I had always known, liking her was something that would never lead anywhere. But tonight, as that memory surfaced again, I finally understood. This was what it felt like for a fantasy to come true. Willow was lying. She wasn't afraid of the cold at all. Chapter 14. The next morning, I was woken up by the noise coming from the kitchen. I casually threw on a pair of shorts and walked out, yawning. What I didn't expect was to see Sophia. I had no idea how she got in. She was bustling around in the kitchen, busy with something. On the island counter was a full table of breakfast, all my favorite foods. I froze on the spot. Sophia glanced at me and raised an eyebrow slightly. "Too happy to speak. I made what you said you wanted before." She trailed off. She turned around and saw the lipstick marks on my neck, the faint and deep scratches across my shoulders. I hurriedly grabbed a shirt to cover myself, but as I bent down, a pack of protection slipped out. Before Sophia could react, the door opened. Willow walked out from behind me, wearing my black t-shirt. Sophia's eyes darkened. She froze for a few seconds, then exploded in rage, throwing down what she was holding and rushing forward, raising her hand to slap her. "Do you think being a side chick is your turn now?" she screamed. I quickly stepped in front of Willow and blocked the slap, but Willow tugged at my sleeve, signaling me not to interfere. Then she stepped forward herself, standing in front of her sister, and said calmly, "We're married." Sophia's mind went blank for a moment, but soon, anger surged up, reddening the corners of her eyes. "So it's you," she shouted, "taking my husband while I was dead, you shameless bitch." Willow lifted her chin and said, "Why didn't you just stay dead?" Sophia was furious, raising her hand again to strike her, but this time, Willow tilted her head slightly and dodged it with precision. She caught her sister's wrist and said, "Morally, maybe I'm not in the right, but legally, I am, and my brother-in-law cares about me," she added. "Even if you hadn't died." Willow lifted her beautiful eyes to look at her sister, speaking word by word. "As long as he agreed, I would have still done it, even if it meant being the other woman." Sophia's anger was instantly ignited by those words. She tried to attack Willow again. The bullet comments exploded. "This little genius of a beauty, she's deliberately provoking her sister to hit her. After all, being injured is the ultimate trap for the male supporting role. Who would ever let a goddess's face get ruined?" Another comment added, "Being the other woman takes talent. Guess the female lead just doesn't have it." I said, "Stop." I cut off Sophia's movement. She looked past Willow at me, her hand trembling, her eyes on the verge of breaking, full of grievance. "Let's talk," I said to her. Inside the room, Sophia asked me, "Why can she, but I can't?" "She looks like me. You were just confused and seduced by her for a moment. That's her fault. I don't blame you. But now I'm back. Why are you still choosing her?" I replied calmly, "Because I like her." Sophia asked, "Since when?" I shrugged. "I liked her even before we got married." She didn't believe me. She took a few steps back, leaning against the wardrobe, but then she saw, on the lowest shelf of the closet, a box filled neatly with things I had carefully collected about Willow. She lowered her eyes, redness gathering in them. "So I was the substitute all along." Chapter 15. I looked at her, paused for a moment, then spoke slowly. "Sophia, when I moved out of the house we shared after getting married, I only had 3 pieces of luggage. But do you know something? All these years, the things I gave you filled 5 entire boxes. Most of them, you never even touched. You weren't anyone's substitute. I truly, sincerely loved you, but you never cherished it. You said I was ordinary, said I couldn't compare to the men chasing you. You always had someone you admired more, so you never took me seriously. But Sophia, who exactly is superior to whom?" The day I left, I threw all 5 boxes away. Take a guess, how many things have you ever given me over the years? "Sophia, you demanded this and that from me, but what have I ever asked from you? When we got married, you wanted me to buy a car, buy a house, hand over my salary, and even pay a 300,000 bride price. Did you think I didn't know? Back then, your father didn't even ask for it. You were the one who came up with that 300,000 to test me. You knew I had already spent all my savings on the house, yet you still told me your father wouldn't agree to the marriage if I couldn't come up with it. In the end, when you saw I really couldn't afford it, you said you'd cover half and I'd cover half, claiming it was a sacrifice you made for me. Why didn't you just say you wanted 10 million from the start? That way, I'd never be able to repay your kindness for the rest of my life. And now this, clearly all the money was with you, yet you faked your death and left me with nothing, forcing me into relying on others, almost leaving me homeless. Time and time again, you deliberately created hardship just to test me, using my suffering to validate your own sense of security. Was it fun? Did it become an addiction?" The bullet comments flooded the screen. Was it fun? Did it become an addiction? Others added. No wonder public opinion flipped, pushing someone to the limit again and again. And now it all blew up. Sophia's eyes turned red. "I'm sorry." She hugged me. I said, "Let go." "No." I raised my hand and slapped her hard. Her eyes reddened at the corners. She took the blow, but still refused to let go. "No," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible. "Don't treat me like this, please. Aren't I the one you like the most?" She grabbed my hand, pressing it against her forehead, pleading helplessly. "I'll do anything you want. Just don't abandon me." I pulled my hand away. "All these years, you've tested me more than once. You stood above me, constantly probing my loyalty. Well, I'm sorry, you didn't pass my test. You liked testing me so much, didn't you? Now the test is over. You've got your answer." Sophia, once Willow entered the picture, you were never even qualified to sit at the table anymore. Chapter 16. After that day, aside from entrusting a lawyer to handle the property issues between Sophia and me, I never saw her again. Only occasionally, I would see bullet comments drifting by. The female lead is numbing herself. No one's even taking care of the dog anymore. The dog found itself a new owner and ran off with the male lead. In the end, the female lead is left with nothing. Guys, I seriously suspect the male lead was never trying to win over the female lead. He was after the dog all along. The male lead has just been living his own rich life. Later, on my way home from work, I ran into that familiar dog, and the person walking it, I recognized him immediately as the male lead mentioned in the bullet comments. He saw me too. It was the first time we met. We looked at each other from a distance, across the street, both curious about the other. The final bullet comment was sent by him. "Hey, bro, see you around." He waved at me. I waved back. Then we each went our separate ways. That night, when I got home, I asked Willow, "When did you buy this place?" I was blow-drying her hair, but she raised an eyebrow and smiled, saying, "This place is actually yours." What? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she began telling me about her childhood. Life hadn't been kind to her either. Following her mother had been miserable. Her mother had been deceived by a man, became ill-tempered, and would often pour scalding hot water onto young Willow. But unlike her sister, Willow didn't place all her future insecurities onto others. She wanted to live her own life. Her sister inherited everything from their father, but Willow had nothing. She could only rely on herself, whether before or after fame. She had very little time that truly belonged to her. The happiest time in her life was during high school, filming videos and singing on the streets late at night. People passed by in a hurry. No one ever stopped, except for one boy, a classmate of hers, quiet and a bit awkward, with little interaction between them, but he would come to listen, standing far away, silently listening, never disturbing her. Willow knew. She had always known. That was her, before fame, with an uncertain future, burdened by fear of poverty and the unknown, at her most vulnerable. Back then, he was her only audience. Later, Willow transferred schools. On her last night there, after finishing her final song, she walked up to that boy. She said, "Don't come anymore. I won't be singing here again." The boy was shy. He often stumbled over his words when speaking to her. He nodded, but the next second, those clear eyes looked at her seriously as he said, "You sing really well. You have to keep going." After she became famous, many people told her similar things, but she always remembered those eyes. Later, Willow heard his name again from others. He had become her sister's husband, her brother-in-law. What a small world, she thought. Her sister hated her, but she still wanted to give a wedding gift, so she bought this apartment in Gulf No. 1. She thought, maybe this would repay that moment of recognition back then. Maybe it would stop the feelings that made her want to see him every time she heard his name. Willow thought it would. She had always been like this, surrounded by people, yet once the spotlight faded, she would return home to nothing. She was used to it, until her sister's funeral. It was raining that day. She saw those eyes again, but this time, they were dim and lifeless. How unfortunate, his wife had died. How fortunate, his wife had died. She asked him, "George, can I ask for a little compensation?"